Hi, everyone. Welcome back to First Principles. We've got a repeat guest today, Sahil. How you doing, Sahil?
All good, Sagar. How about yourself?
Well, just chugging along. Do you want to introduce yourself just for people who are meeting you for the first time?
For people who didn't watch my first podcast, okay, yeah, my name is Sahil. Sagar and I used to work together in a SaaS company, software as a service company. I'm still a consultant over there. Yeah, I have different hobbies, including reading, music, critical thinking is something that I do in my daily life, and any topic related to it is something that I really enjoy talking about. So here I am again.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot of interests that are aligned to various degrees. One of those interests is like objectivism and just reading people in a certain way, philosophy in general. So today,
Yeah.
I suggested that we speak about the emotion of envy, and you graciously accepted that. So tell us what your initial thoughts are on envy.
Wow. Envy. It's something that people feel when they have when they want something that somebody else has. I think it's got rooted um, factors like it's sort of like an insecurity. It's a feeling that I feel envy. I feel that quite. I don't feel it very often, but envy I feel like is something that I feel when I see somebody has something, and I think deep down I know that I probably can't have it,
Hmm.
and I feel like I want it. Otherwise, I mostly, if I see something that's really nice and somebody is doing something really cool, I feel inspired by it. I feel like I should be doing some of the same things. But envy, I think I've felt it a few times, and it was only during those times when I sort of felt insecure about my own being and felt it's something that I can't achieve right now, and I was just acting out.
So, in your opinion, have you given any serious thought to a distinction between envy, resentment, and jealousy? And I guess hatred
Not
as well.
really. Not really. I haven't really thought about distinctions. I understand all of those four emotions, but jealousy. I think I watched this on a show somewhere. Jealousy is something like the fear of losing something that you have to somebody else versus
Hmm.
envy being obviously being jealous of somebody else's maybe possessions or values or virtues.
So it's not loss based.
And
So envy is something, if you don't have it, you're kind of feeling bad about it. But jealousy would be a fear of losing. Interesting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't quote me on it.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was just a regular TV show where
Personal opinion.
I saw that. Yeah, it
What
kind of makes
about
sense. So,
what about resentment?
oh, that would be tougher to describe. Like, what are your thoughts?
My thing, I mean, here's my take on it. If I have to grade it, it starts with jealousy, then various levels of envy, but then the last level of envy will have to have certain resentment in it, and from there we get to hatred. That's my sort of map of these four
That's
negative.
actually a very, very nice. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Like, once you're envious, you feel resentment, which gives you anger. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to read out a few definitions or like certain excerpts from Ayn Rand's essay, The Age of Envy. Now, that's a very
Mhm.
specific kind of envy she's getting at, but I think there's going to be benefit in discussing the various other kinds that we've touched upon. So, one dictionary definition that she gives from, I guess that's Random House Dictionary 1968, is a sense of discontent or jealousy with regard to another's advantages, successes, or possessions. That's one. The other one is desire for an advantage possessed by another. So those are basically like the same thing. But then
Mhm.
further she adds is like to envy is to feel resentful because someone else possesses or has achieved what one wishes oneself to possess or achieve. But it doesn't stop there. According to her, you get to a certain stage when you're brewing in that particular envy and you, I guess, choose not to, do something about it. You get to a stage where if you value something, now you don't desire it as a value. Now you want to destroy it. So whatever you valued in the past, now you want to destroy it. So for example, if you never could afford an iPhone or not about afford, just could not get it, you've moved past from the fact that, oh, he has it or she has it and all of those things. And now you'd want to start, I don't know, join an environmentalist nonprofit and say no to smartphones from everywhere and technology from everywhere. So that's the leap, which I'm really concerned about, which she labels it as hatred of good for being the good. What are your thoughts on that? Would you agree with her characterization?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This you touched upon so many things over there. So I think the first thing I want to touch upon is the fact that when somebody envies somebody for having certain advantages, it's only when the results of those advantages show.
Hmm.
So it's always, I think, envy always comes into the picture when you see the end result of maybe somebody's advantages. So I think we can tie all of that together. I wouldn't be envious of anybody who maybe had a better upbringing, but is maybe in the same social status or economic status as I am.
Hmm.
I'll probably laugh at that person. I wouldn't be envious of their upbringing at all. But if I see somebody doing better, I might resent them for having maybe a better life or access to some more faculties that I didn't, only because of the circumstances.
Hmm. Now,
So
yeah.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
go ahead.
no,
Okay.
yeah. That was the first thing I want to touch upon, and then you have some comments on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking here that, that there is this thing about a gateway drug. So what do you think if all of these things is just like one massive room, what's the doorway? And how often does one need to check oneself to not sort of get into that really ugly hell?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The gateway, I don't know. As soon as you probably start or maybe stop to think there's still progress yet to happen in your life. Because if I was still progressing and if I still thought I could do better in life, I don't think I'd ever get envious. I think I'd take it more as an inspiration and as an ideal to follow. If I knew somebody was doing really good things and if I felt capable enough. So I think the gateway would be when I stop believing in stuff or believing in myself and I define myself as a person with certain capabilities or certain potential. And as soon as I see something going beyond that potential, that's when I start to get cognitive dissonance and start to realize that maybe there are other things that I'm not doing, and to feel comfortable with that, yeah, I sort of get insecure and do stuff. So that I think might be the gateway. As soon as you stop believing in yourself, at least that's what I think. Yeah.
How long have you stood in that kind of feeling in your life if you look back? And how have you gotten out of it?
I probably have been quite a few times. Luckily for me, those were only moments. Maybe certain things I grew out of in a few years, maybe some things quicker. I definitely have a couple of things that I took a few years to grow out of. Those are really personal things.
Hmm.
And I had a lot of resentment and jealousy for certain people. So, um, yeah, that could vary depending on situation or how mature you are.
But was it just time, or did you have to do something to get out of that particular mindset?
I think I was really young, so in that sense, I was lucky. I didn't really have a fully formed mind. So as soon as I experienced life a little bit more, I realized there's more to it, and there are various factors affecting everything, except for what I had in my head and like zoned into, like this thing happened because of certain shortcomings that I had. And as soon as I had more inputs to work with, I realized that there's more to it, and I knew what I could control and what were factors that I really couldn't. And that's how I sort of found the strength to move out of that zone. Yeah.
So it was
And that's
essentially
why I actually even say that as soon as you stop believing in growth or progress, that's
right.
probably the gateway into you starting to feel envious.
Do you think it's got something to do with mindset as well? So, like, folks have, I think historically, folks have a zero sum mindset where, like, if you are getting rich, which directly means I'm getting poorer because the pie is fixed. And generally, capitalism is about trying to create something from quote unquote nothing, but essentially is rearrangement of atoms. So it's not that the pie is fixed. We can increase the pie. And that hasn't really gotten into the culture. So people go to, you know, that's why they want to abolish the billionaires. Of course, depends how you got your billions, but what do you make of that?
It could be. It could be. It most definitely is a mindset thing for the most part. A lot of people that I meet always want to work harder to get more, and they understand the concept of reward, the reward function,
Hmm.
and you have to put an effort to get something out of it. And then there are certain people with the mentality like they deserve, like they have the certain what do you call that? They feel like they deserve something even though they
Entitlement.
haven't put in entitlement, exactly.
Right.
Even just for existing, they feel like they deserve this as human beings, even though they aren't adding any value to any situation.
Right. Do
So
you
yeah, it
think,
very well could be mindset.
but do you think such people think that like the things, goods and services, or even a state of being that they want is just out there and people are gatekeeping it from them versus it needs to be produced? I mean, it's
That's
not out there.
how. That's probably how they're justifying it in their head that somebody is keeping the means from them
Right.
for them to get successful. Yeah,
And then
exactly.
if they don't get that, so that particular initial, I guess, incorrect assumption where it's just gatekeeping, although sometimes it could be just gatekeeping, but
It
that
could be.
in
Yeah.
right, but that initial incorrect assumption just keeps getting fed, and more starts like that fire keeps getting the fuel. So they get to a stage where they'd like to just essentially destroy all technology because because the state of nature was so
Just
amazing.
destroy anything productive. Yeah, because that goes totally against how they picture life to be. Yeah, kind of like the very extreme socialist mindset.
Interesting. What is that extreme socialist mindset? Just like destruction of everything productive? It wasn't there about producing more and more rapid wealth
Not
initially?
necessarily destroying anything productive, but just the concentration of wealth for people who are the main producers. So they feel like wealth should be distributed, even if people, I don't, they don't probably feel it exactly like this. I don't think half of the time they themselves know what they're feeling, but they just feel a sense of entitlement.
Right, right,
But
right.
just the fact
That's
that wealth
worse.
shouldn't be this, yeah, that is definitely worse. But just
Right.
a sense of that wealth is getting concentrated only on the powerful, and the path to power itself is so biased against them that they can't even make it. This is the
Mm-hmm.
story they tell themselves to, and these are just yeah musings. I'm sure they have different reasons. Some people aren't maybe educated enough, or they haven't thought things through. But I've met a few that have
Well,
something like
obviously, without naming names, do you want to go through what happens in there? Have you seen any change in, let's say, mindset that you can perceive that even they might not be like they might not be cognizant of, but you can perceive since you have an eye for this?
yeah, just a sense of not having thought things through. Like they fill their brains with ideas rather than reality.
Hmm.
And most of their thought is around how the world could be versus how it is, and how certain truths will always or do always sort of exist, or at least majorly exist. Not all the time, obviously, there are exceptions all the time, but there is a certain order of things.
Right.
So, yeah.
So those particular truths that you're saying, I mean, they don't necessarily want to, how do I put this? Even if they are trying to think about how the world should be, as long as it's not like a destructive value, we still need to figure out what the world is in order to get from here to there. So is that something, again, is this so out of the realm of like the current fog of envy that they can't really discern this? Or people can have multiple thoughts that are very counter in their head sitting there? What do you
I think
think?
most of them just yeah don't get to think things through. How many thinkers have you met in real life who really want to sit down and talk about a concept and really get to the crux of it? Very few. So for the masses, it's really easy to latch on to an idea that they can easily justify in their heads, and they can also easily justify their own existence without putting in a lot of effort. They can latch on to certain ideas which make them feel comfortable in their heads.
Right.
Any idea of value, creating more value, or maybe the producer getting credit for what they're doing is almost like cognitive dissonance in these people.
Okay. So one example for value that I've heard a lot is that capitalism essentially works on that. So like nobody is forcing me to buy again an iPhone, right? So if I pay $1,000 for it, the assumption is that if I am a rational person, or at least mostly rational person, the utility value of that excuse me iPhone is going to be more than $1,000 for me. Now I don't know what that is. It's probably 10,000. I don't know. Maybe it's like because I use it so much, so I don't know what that is. But clearly for Apple or for whoever the producer is, they are happy to part with that, even if they're making like a 50% profit, like, as compared to what they could have made. So if the company stock is worth, say, let's say 100 billion, my assertion is that in the utility value terms, they've created trillions of dollars of value and they're capturing only like, I don't know, 5-10% of it. In a way, they're leaving a lot of money on the table so that they can make the world wealthy. Now, they're not doing it out of like some sense of altruism, but it's just that kind of properly selfish interest works out in everyone's favor. Why do you
Yeah.
think is this part missed, even amongst people who are engaged in business?
Oh, could you specify which part again?
The value for value part, because I don't think a lot of
But
people start their businesses with that. It's I think the concept is more about
I
loot.
think most business people probably, I, I think any properly functioning business would have thought of this, which is how they survive in the first place. But yeah, it probably goes back to the mindset point where people don't have that entrepreneurial mindset where they get these things, how creating begets more creation.
Hmm.
And yeah, like Apple, like you just said, has created value and people are paying money for it. They see a certain sense of value in it, which is why they're paying money for it, which in turn should make them wealthier to be able to do more stuff,
Right.
which creates more value. And that in turn will create a whole ecosystem, which is what the whole world functions on. It might be too difficult a concept for a lot of hive minds to grasp, I think, I feel.
The hive mind part. Expand on that. What do you mean?
I mean, people, birds of the same feather flock together. So these people generally tend have a tendency to find each other, and they obviously find people, which is why we have unions and groupings where people share the same ideology of not necessarily being producers, but yet having that sense of entitlement
Do,
and basically portraying an extreme left viewpoint.
or I mean, collectivist, I'd say, left or right,
Yeah,
because I mean, in any kind of
it
a
could.
tribal ethnicity thing, it would be that fascism would be
I mean, since
weird.
we're talking more about the socialistic aspects of it, that's why I
Right.
refer to the best. But yeah, groupism of a similar mindset can happen anywhere.
So, do you think production necessarily, um, the prerequisite for production, good production, would be to have independent thought, or you can be like a hive mind kind of creature and still be a good producer?
You'll definitely have to have your own niche to be able to be successful in the current state of the market. I don't think everybody survives. Like we see probably 1% or even less of the companies that ever got
Hmm, hmm.
started and made it. So you definitely need to have a little bit of independent thinking because like 10 companies could be doing the same thing. There has to be something that sets you apart, and that's where the independent thinking it comes in. You'll have to have that. And also, it's a bit rare in nature itself. I think producers are fewer. I've come across fewer producers. Uh, so it is a bit of a different mindset in that way as well.
Is it just a mindset thing, or is it mostly cultural? Like, why do you think there's so less producers? Is it just ability? Because I think, well, everybody might have something of value for at least themselves, and they can find the birds of a feather can flock together in good ways with
Mhm.
consumers and producers, but that doesn't seem to happen.
Mhm. For the same reason why most good things never happen, it's usually more difficult to get to that stage, and it's easier to just be lazy and get certain returns or narrow your life to that.
Is it easy to
And
live
that's
in that kind of a resentment, though? I don't think it's. I mean, I've tried it. It's not great.
it probably isn't, but you find ways to justify it, and that's how it comes out in different ways, and maybe protests, and or maybe in just the way you are as a human being. A lot of these people are probably very snappy in their being if they aren't doing anything about it.
Give me some examples of the ways to justify it. Let's just make it a little bit more concrete for our listeners.
Oh gosh, that I have to think about. I don't know if either they aren't able to justify it, and it's become like that's how they would become snappy people because they always have this resentment in their head.
Hmm.
Other ways of justifying would be like uh, maybe they blame it on their parents, which is where we blame half of our things. Like
Hmm.
my parents probably didn't educate me enough or invest in me enough to get me to a place where I could do all of this, which is
Yeah.
why probably people start getting envious of people's situations. Um, yeah, there could be so many reasons, man. Just individual circumstances, who are parenting,
Government.
born into a certain government policies,
Yeah.
born into a certain country.
Or if you really believe in like those let's say your immutable characteristics, like your skin color and this and that and your caste, you can really tell yourself powerful stories and they'll keep you down because there is power in
Absolutely.
belief.
And there will always be thousands of stories to counter those. Like people have come from the worst of situations that they've become great people in their field. So
Yeah, yeah.
like it's definitely doable. It probably takes way more effort. Um, that's why probably way fewer people are able to get there.
So in that scenario, like, again, just to mention, not that those excuses are entirely untrue. You know, somebody's parents or the government policy or whatever can actually be bad. But then the point is, what are you going to do about it? And that could just mean stepping back or accepting it as well.
Mhm.
But the fact
Yeah,
is, there is no resolution. That ambient anxiety is tolerated. And I think that is very unhealthy. Is that something
so
you'd agree with? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. The policies of any country like that. That's why the happiness index exists. You can measure why how certain people relate to their lives versus people from other countries. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
I,
the way your masters treat you makes a difference
masters.
in yeah in the way you get to lead your life.
Yeah, yeah. I do think in this scenario that at least when it comes to material abundance, I mean, we do owe a great debt of gratitude to industrialization and capitalism specifically, not just capitalism of trade, although of course that is also great, but also of production. And a certain amount of risk has been taken by the person who's doing the production. Again, I don't want to put anybody on a pedestal. They are not kings, but like credit by credit is due. That is an important thing. I just want to take like a slight tangent and read one line which is also in Atlas Shrugged. So I just want to take your opinion on it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they do not know. They do not want to own your fortune. They want you to lose it. They do not want to succeed. They want you to fail. They do not want to live. They want you to die. They desire nothing. They hate existence. Atlas Shrugged. Now, you've read this in the past, and I know you said it's one of your favorite books. What do you make of that? And this is obviously the worst kind of envy that I'm talking about, hatred for the good, for being the good. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it ties back to what we were discussing before. Envy comes because of the realization, right or wrong, that you can't achieve something. So when you
Mm.
can't achieve something and you want to be on a certain, uh, like a say the same place as others, you can. The only way is to bring them down because you can't rise up to their level.
Hmm. What is that solving though? I don't understand it still. If let's say,
They're
well,
they're in their own heads, they'll be able to sleep better, likelihood, because they can't accept the fact that somebody is getting more than what they can ever get, and yet they feel somehow that they should be getting it.
even if doing this continuously will diminish their current quality of life, even if that happens, they're still comfortable with
They
it.
don't see the bigger picture. Yeah, it's all about being within a certain age. They don't being within a certain range. They don't want the gap to grow wider. They want it to be. So if I can't be happy, the next best option to me is that the other person is also not happy.
Oh, misery loves
Otherwise,
company.
misery likes company. Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Otherwise,
Okay.
I'll be the only person who's not having a good time, and that's again born out of envy and the feeling that we probably can't have what that person has or can't be what that person is.
Okay. So if a friend comes to you, and I don't know if they will be your friend if they're in that state, but let's say they come to you for help anyway, because you're a benevolent person. What's like one thing you'd start? Like as we are approaching the end of this episode, let's talk about the fixes because that's this is very depressing. How would you reorient them?
The first thing I tell them would be probably to stop comparing themselves with anything else or anybody else and just know within their own life if they've progressed or not.
Okay.
That's usually a good start.
So stop comparing. Stop
Envy,
second-handed lives. Don't live that. Like live for yourself. Okay.
exactly, because it's true. Everybody's had a different upbringing, different circumstances that they went through, and life works in the most mysterious ways. A very wild situation could affect your life in ways that you couldn't have even imagined. and to know that reality is different for everybody. Somebody who may look superficially happy may not necessarily actually be feeling fulfilled or content. So never compare yourselves with anybody. First of all, because they won't be accurate, and second of all, it's not true to what your life experience is. So yeah, just see if you've bettered yourself and if you've been able to justify your own existence and being the best you could have been. That's yeah, that should set them off on the right path to
You're such
everything
an
else.
optimist, man. Yes, I
I
agree.
do feel like this is possible. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't be living my life happily if I didn't believe in it.
Okay, so therapy
Otherwise,
question
it's
number
the end. It's the end for me as well. Like, right? If I can't grow out of my misery, then there's nothing left in life to pursue.
therapy question number two then. How
Oh,
would you recommend somebody to really focus on, first of all, having values, identifying their values if they like, I don't know if it's discovered or invented, and then maybe having a hierarchy of those values and really be focused on that. Because I think if you just do that, everything else falls into place and you don't really have the patience or the time for envy. It's unproductive.
yeah, this question might be better for a medical practitioner, but the things that I think of generally and I think that have helped me, um, just first of all, really recognizing that fact and understanding that, really thinking about it deeply, going back to the moments where you felt this way, recognizing your own feelings, self actualization, being honest with yourself.
Don't run away from it. If you're feeling it, feel it.
Absolutely recognize if you can really, and this is where stoicism really helps.
Hmm.
Like, if you can really change something, change it. If you can't, then there's really nothing you can do about it, and it's best to move past it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
situation can't
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Okay. So some allied concepts to envy then. You talked about the growth mindset. Now, to me, it's very duh. But I have learned rudely that it's not that there. It's not really a thing apart from just like the bumper sticker. A lot of people don't have that. What is the growth mindset and what is the opposite mindset of a growth mindset? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it sounds like it's a very well defined term already, but in my head, I can try to explain what I get out of it. Mindset is exactly that. Um, See, either you recognize whether you can do something or not,
Hmm.
and as soon as you, like, even thinking about that itself is growth mindset. You recognizing, like, why does one need to grow? If it's probably because they found a better way of living or a better thing that in their head makes more sense, and they want to improve a certain thing that they felt wasn't quite there yet. So that itself is already the growth mindset. What defines it is the ability to decipher whether or not you can um, really grow into something or whether you can let it go and it
Hmm.
doesn't really affect you. So if you can grow into something and if you feel like you can be valuable in certain areas, yeah, definitely pursue it. And if you know, like, for me, it's a very bad example or maybe a politically incorrect example, but if a one-legged person wants to win the 100-meter race, the regular two-legged 100-meter race, that is just going to be impossible to achieve. Never under any circumstances would they be able to win that race. So to first recognize your shortcomings, yet knowing that losing one leg is not the end of your life, and you can still do certain things and make your life worth living and still getting what you can get out of life, that sort of encompasses everything. Just trying to make life better.
Hmm.
And it's usually a productive thought. You'll definitely do something productive to make your life better if that is your mindset, if you can really think things through like that.
And if you really go long term, like starfish, I think they just grow their limbs back. So maybe get into genetic research, and that might be a possibility, right?
That might be a drive for somebody to achieve that dream. Yeah. What's that saying? Invention is the
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
necessity the mother of all invention. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if somebody feels compelled enough and if they feel like life would be much better off if they had two legs or maybe a prosthetic leg or a leg of a certain kind, they might work towards getting that.
For somebody who is already on a downward spiral of envy, how much, if you, and if they have identified that they want to, in fact, like sincerely to themselves, not to anybody else, want to change course, how much willpower do you think, and I know it's a very subjective thing,
Oh,
but either way, how much willpower do you think it's required, one, to first course correct, take a U-turn, but also, do you think it's the same amount to keep going? Because I think it gets easier.
yeah, it probably does get easier because you gain traction and you form a habit of doing that.
You
How
get
much
some benefits.
willpower? Yeah, uh, you just basically get into a habit of doing stuff, and as long as you can compel yourself to do it for a certain days, I think it does keep getting easier and easier. Maybe not always very easy, but it definitely does help to have some sort of continuation.
Hmm.
But how much willpower an individual needs, man, that is such a, yeah, I don't think anybody would be able to answer that. How many willpower are people born with? Maybe it's not just about something you get from external sources. Maybe there's a potential that you've always born with. So
Yeah.
ideally, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in one, of course, like getting to the potential as soon as possible, but then not stopping there, increasing the potential as well, because I'm a greedy boy. So, we'll see if we can have. I don't know where willpower comes from, and I don't think if one.
Exercising your mind. I think it's just like anything else, just like physical activities. You keep exercising your mind, you keep your mind fresh, you keep mm, taking new ideas into your head. At least don't disregard anything without seriously considering it. Keep your
Hmm.
mind open, and I think that's key. Yeah, just keeping your mind busy with new activities and ideas is probably what exercise is.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your suggestions, perhaps what you did in your life? But if you don't did not do it directly, that's fine as well. I think peer group matters a lot here, especially for a person who is not high agency, who's trying to become high agency. I think a lot of folks, I guess saying in the Anglosphere is tall poppy syndrome, and we have a much more accessible saying like crab mentality. What do you do in that situation? Is the best situation just leaving and then getting some space and starting out? Or because, it's hard, especially in a very like densely populated areas and countries and communities like India. And it has a lot of benefits, but this becomes a problem.
Sure. Man, I also feel like as soon as you get yourself out of the peer mentality, that's where it begins,
Okay,
regardless of
what's the peer
whichever
mentality?
peer group you're in. It's a collective thought. Like once you understand what everybody is like, you sort of within a group, you come up with an average of what everybody is okay with, and
Automatically.
yeah, you kind of sense that, and you know where to draw the line. So to know that that is a restrictive thought and that your individual mind, and when you change the perspective from a group mindset to an individual mindset, your thoughts about the same subject might change. So regardless of whichever peer you're with, if you're really lucky, you might be with a bunch of faculty mates who always ask you think of, they encourage this kind of thought process and they know the distinction. And I think very few are privileged to born into that. I don't know if anybody was ever born into it. So I think just having the capability of getting out of that peer mindset and having individual thoughts does away with the need of you belonging to a very uh, maybe an intelligent group.
That for a lot of people involves a lot of pain, psychic pain. Now, is just a trade-off? You accept it, or you believe that you'll find your tribe, but the tribe that agrees with your values.
And yeah, I was actually going to say that after a certain point, like after I reached my early 20s, I felt like I had the independence to choose my peer group. And I obviously gravitated naturally towards the people who had a similar mindset. So give it enough time. Life is large and full of possibilities. You'll find people who you can resonate with.
So life is full of possibilities is one thing which one needs to
Oh,
really internalize.
100%. Yeah. You get stuck in the rut and you feel like this is everything. And you build your own ideas about if certain things go wrong with the control that you have over the life that you have. Yeah, you just have to forget that is like this life beyond that, and it's huge and it's just wonderful.
Beautiful, man. This is a great place to end it, unless you have any parting thoughts.
No, I think we've said everything we had to say on the multitudes of topics we touched upon. Great discussion as always. Talking to you always brings out, I don't know, the best of my mind and ideas. We can bounce ideas off of each other. And I think, yeah, I think we've touched upon everything we needed to.
Thanks, man. I think this is a topic I'm going to keep returning to in different manifestations, maybe as like a service to myself and a public service, because it bears constant reminding for somebody in the depths of despair that that flip might be helpful.
Yeah, getting out of that rut is important.
Perfect. All right, man. Bye, everyone.